Thank you for joining me through Scripture. And right now we're going through Exodus, and we are on the second plague today of Exodus, and this one is of frogs. God sends a bunch of frogs, which is pretty disgusting. But to me, have you ever wondered why he doesn't send like lions and bears? Well, we'll get into that a little bit here, but I'm confident that God has something for you today, and I'm confident that you'll be encouraged from today. So check this out. Chapter 8, verse 9 says this. Moses said to Pharaoh, I leave you the honor of setting the time for me to pray for you and your officials and your people, that you and your houses may be rid of the frogs, except for those that remain in the Isle. The Isle, not the Isle, the Nile with an N, capital N. I'm amazed here that Pharaoh does not ask Moses and Aaron to come to his palace so he can kill them. He asks Moses and Aaron to come to his palace so they can pray for him. And I got a few observations that will lead us into an application for my life and a challenge for you today. But I love that Moses is kind of throwing Pharaoh a bone. He's kind of honoring him, like, hey, give me the time you want me to pray for you, and I'll do it. AKA, change and follow God. This is your choice. But as we see, Pharaoh's heart is hard, and he will not choose to follow God. First observation I had of today was that in the darkest time, even unbelievers, enemies of God, will be used for God and humbled by God. Why? God is sovereign. No thing or no one can ever stand against the power of God. His power is unwavering. It's unmovable. It's unmatchable. And even I can't even speak and give words to it. It's that powerful. And if I were Moses, this is my second observation, I'd be coming to Pharaoh and be like, man, I'm kind of tempted to not pray for him. What do you think, Aaron? like let's definitely let this buddy struggle with these frogs for the next 18 years of his life until he dies. Why? Because we hate him. He killed all the Hebrew babies. He's persecuting our people. Instead, Moses shows us a great picture of what it's like to pray for your enemies. And I love this observation from Peter Hinn in his commentary. He says that back in the day, they actually found a drawing of the fertility goddess in Egypt who had a body and a head that was a frog. The Egyptians at this point are maybe like, hey, the Egyptian goddess is sovereign, and look what they did to the Hebrew babies. They all died in the Nile, and God quickly, easily took an insignificant animal, a frog, and said, I'm the sovereign God of the universe. Check out these frogs. So not all 10 plagues were associated with the small g gods of Egypt, but most of them were. And I love that powerful hand of God intentionally showing the enemies, this is where I'm at. And the fourth observation is this. I love that Moses said, hey, man, I'll pray for you all these frogs to disappear, but all of them except the Nile River. I ain't touching those. Why? Those frogs are God's. We can touch everything, but we can never touch God's sovereignty. We can never touch God's creation. We can never touch anything that God doesn't allow us to pray for, touch, or be a part of. He's sovereign. And in applying this to my life, I love this quote from Matthew Henry. He says this, see what reason we have to stand in awe of this God, who when he pleases can arm the smallest parts of creation against us. If God be our enemy, all of the creatures are at war with us. How can I apply this to my life today? I need to trust God. He is sovereign. Pray for my enemies. These are the things that I must do in my life. And practically, what does that look like? Well, trust comes from spending time with God. And spending time, intentional time with God, comes and creates an understanding of his sovereignty and a submission to this sovereignty. And an understanding and submission to the sovereignty of God. And it has invited me and is inviting you today to be a part of this great power, to witness it, to testify about it, and to be a part of it in his mercy and grace. So here's my challenge to you today. Time. If you have chosen not to spend time with God today for whatever reason, you have chosen to shelf, to shut the door on, to not be a part of his sovereignty, to not be a part of this power, to not even witness it or testify about this power. I don't know about you, but I'm not going to do that today. So pray to God today to show you time with him and what that looks like. He's going to give you the habits and the know-how and the way to spend time with him. He will, but he wants to spend time with you. And remember this as we leave today. God is sovereign.